The year is 1504, the height of the Italian Renaissance. In Florence, two of the most iconic artistic minds in human history are commissioned to paint murals on opposite walls of a council hall. On one side, Leonardo da Vinci, one of the most incredible minds that has ever lived. The Mona Lisa, the Last Supper. Though he thought of painting as the highest art, Leonardo was, by definition, a true polymath. His work stretched from architecture to anatomy, from machine to man. So innovative was his imagination that he conceptualized a helicopter-like flying machine centuries before powered flight. His mind was so restless it seemed incapable of staying inside a single discipline. Even the way he wrote has become part of his legend. Leonardo often wrote in mirrored script, moving from right to left so that his words appear illegible unless read in a mirror. We're not entirely sure why he did that, but it adds to the mystery of a mind that seems to have worked differently from everyone else's. But that brilliance had a shadow. Leonardo was notorious for leaving things unfinished. His curiosity was so vast that he often moved on to new ideas. He would begin with genius, then drift toward another mystery, another experiment, another door into the unknown. In modern times, you might call it a case of 16th century ADHD. And on the other side, Michelangelo, a different kind of genius entirely. Where Leonardo's mind seemed to scatter outward into every mystery in the universe, Michelangelo had a burning focus. He was the sculptor of David, the creator of the Pietà. From stone, he made sculptures so intricate and realistic, they almost look soft to the touch. Michelangelo believed sculpture was the highest art. To him, the figure was already inside the marble. His job was not to create it, but to free it. This was the man who would later paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, despite the fact that he did not even consider himself primarily a painter. But Michelangelo was not without his flaws either. He was intense, proud, difficult, competitive. Often he was miserable. He could create works that seemed almost holy while still being trapped in the same human emotions that trap everyone else. One famous story says that as a young artist in Florence, Michelangelo irritated another sculptor so badly that the man punched him in the face, broke his nose, and left it misshapen for life. Before Michelangelo became a name carved into history, he was a young, brilliant, and often difficult artist caught up in the daily life of his time. And then, in 1504, Florence placed these two men in the same room. Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo were commissioned to paint opposite walls of the same hall. One room, two visions of greatness. Not just a mural, but a visible argument between two forms of genius. Leonardo was the endless mind, and Michelangelo was the focused will. One man seemed to move outward into every mystery of the universe, while the other seemed to drive inward into stone and flesh and suffering and form. If history had given us that room, it might have become one of the most extraordinary spaces ever created by human hands. But it never happened. Leonardo's mural began to fail almost as soon as it began. As he so often did, he experimented. He reached for something beyond the proven method, and the work deteriorated before it could become what he imagined due to the materials that he used. Michelangelo didn't fare any better. He never completed his mural either. So the great showdown between Leonardo and Michelangelo became something else entirely. Not a room of masterpieces, but a room of almost. Two geniuses, two visions of greatness, but history was left imagining what could have been. What a shame, right? But the failure of that room tells us something completed masterpieces usually don't. We look at Leonardo and Michelangelo now, and it's almost impossible not to turn them into monuments in their own. Their names feel carved into civilization. They seem like proof that human beings can reach beyond ordinary life and touch something eternal. And in some ways they did, but they were not the demigods that we imagine them to be. They were men. Leonardo could imagine machines centuries ahead of his time. He could study the hidden structure of the body and paint faces that still seem alive after 500 years. And still, he struggled to finish what he began. Michelangelo could carve marble until it seemed soft as skin. He could create bodies that feel almost biblical in their force and still be proud, difficult, miserable, and painfully human. Their greatness didn't elevate them into some special status. They were still just normal people. We imagine that people who create immortal work must be made of some better material than us. More disciplined and more certain and more whole. Above the ordinary weaknesses that make us hesitate before beginning anything meaningful. But that is not what history shows us. If even Leonardo's works were left unfinished, then our own unfinished work does not mean we are incapable. Even if Michelangelo was difficult, proud, and inwardly tormented, we do not need to become perfectly balanced human beings before we create something meaningful. Greatness does not require purity. Beauty can come from a person who is still confused, restless, insecure, angry, distracted, or incomplete. And that, I think, is freeing. But the same truth has a darker side. Even if genius does not save a person from being human, then achievements may not be the redemption that we imagine it to be. We want to believe that if someone can create David, or the Last Supper, or the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, then surely they must have escaped the smaller ugliness of life, the jealousy, the insecurity, the bitterness, the wounded pride, the fear of being surpassed. But history does not give us that comfort. Leonardo and Michelangelo did not become whole simply because they were brilliant. They did not rise above the human condition. They carried it with them into the studio. They could create things that seemed almost divine while still being subject to the ordinary pressures that shape everyone else. Talent can make somebody brilliant, sure, but it does not necessarily make them wise. Success can make a name survive for centuries, but it can't make a soul feel whole. This is why humanizing these figures cuts both ways. It can inspire us because it means flawed people still have potential, but it can also disillusion us because it means potential alone will not heal us. Leonardo and Michelangelo show us what human beings are capable of making, but they also show us what achievement cannot do. It cannot remove our flaws. It cannot save us from ourselves. It can't turn us into gods. So yeah, create, build something, make something beautiful. Follow the strange pull of whatever gift or curiosity is inside you, but don't confuse the thing you make with the person that you become. Don't confuse it for who you are, your identity, and your ego. Creating something great and becoming a complete human being are not the same thing. When striving for one, don't forget about the other. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.